Hello, friends and fellow clean freaks. My name is Andy, and I help clean and organize my neighbors' homes for free. Today, we are helping my neighbor clean out this overwhelmed garage. You can see there is so much stored in here that it's actually made the basic function of the garage unusable. We can't even get to the back door that leads to the yard and then the house. So we're going to clean all of this out and sort through all of these boxes. It's going to take me about 8 hours total, which I break up between 2 beautiful days here in early October. And what we're looking at in this pile are boxes from my neighbor's childhood home. Her mother passed away last year, and her father has also passed away. So they cleaned out their parents' homes, and a lot of that stuff ended up here. They also had another property that some of these boxes came from. And while I love a total clean out and restoration, this is going to have an impactful before and after, but not a total refresh. I want to warn you about that because this neighbor, she just wasn't ready to give everything up. So instead, what we're going to focus on is taking everything out of these cardboard boxes and sorting them into clear bins. And you can see my neighbor starting to pull those out now. And the reason we're going with the clear bin method, there's a few reasons. One, the stuff in cardboard boxes, that's going to start to deteriorate. Those are susceptible to mold and water damage. And as I will always say, anything worth keeping or storing is worth keeping and storing well. And the clear bins do that. But not only do they offer protection from the elements, they also allow us to see what's inside the containers. So unlike these boxes, which you're going to see, we just spend a lot of time opening to see what's in them and remind ourselves what's in them. The clear bins, once we have the stuff in there, we can see it and then we can use it. And you'll see as we sort out some dishes, kitchen appliances, now that we've actually been able to find them, we can store them and use them, or we can eventually get rid of it because we're sick of looking at something in a clear bin. And when my neighbor's ready, I hope she will do that. But today and the next day, we're going to focus on step 1, which is organizing the clutter. So the way we decide to work today is I have a meeting with my neighbor and we talk about our goals. One of the things I said was that I would just go through the boxes and give her a box at a time to go through, to sort, keep, donate, put away. And I want to point out that I did offer her a chair and table several times throughout the day, but she felt like standing for this first day and I wasn't going to stop her. She's going through these bins. We start with kitchenware because that's pretty easy. And we're trying to part with things or see what she can give to her daughters. Now, this is perfectly reasonable for me in her case because all of her daughters are in early adulthood, either finishing up college or getting first apartments, that kind of stage. So a lot of these things, as she finds them, she puts in piles for her daughters. And I checked in with her several times of, does your daughter want this stuff? Because I know so many times that's a very real thing with parents and children. They don't want their parents' stuff. And she assures me that they do, and I just reminded her that if they tell her they don't, believe them and donate it, give it to a thrift store, etc. Now, you have to keep in mind here that what you're seeing, my neighbor and I don't know each other. I'm calling her my neighbor. I call everyone my neighbor. But actually, what I do is I post on our neighborhood Facebook page that I'm offering free cleanings in exchange for filming the cleanup and organization in my neighborhood. And people respond. They DM me photos and a little bit of their story and situation. And then we have a brief call and I just show up and help. So part of getting started is just getting to know each other and building a system together, building some trust. And that's going to be different every time. Now, I will say I loved working with this neighbor because she and I were really working together quite well. She never took breaks. I don't take breaks. And we quickly realized we needed this freebie table. This is a great example of how we kind of collaborated together, where we realized anything we're getting rid of, the fastest way to get rid of it is just put it out on the sidewalk for our other neighbors to put into their homes. So that's what you saw there. So keeping things speeding up here, you can see very quickly that we really start to pull out a lot of boxes and we work through a lot of containers together. While my neighbor's sorting through the keep or toss, I'm going through boxes, lining them up so that she always has a project to work on. But what I'm also doing is finding boxes that aren't full or that have mixed items and putting like items with like items. You're going to start to see that we make crates for her daughters that I mentioned. Those will be put off to the side. And then we get more and more boxes pulled out of the garage, which I will show you in just a bit, the pile of boxes we go through. I think in the first day we easily got to about 15 of these large boxes. So we really worked like the Energizer Bunny. You know, it's easy for, I just have to point out, it's easy for me to come into anybody's home and do this, but for my neighbors, this is a lot of work. It's not only physically taxing and overwhelming, but it's also very mentally overwhelming as well. So I, again, just really have to hand it to my neighbor that she was able to just keep going, push through some of the nostalgia, the memories tied to things, the sentimentality, and keep moving forward. Now, what we're not doing today at all is I come across a lot of photos, bills, a lot of paperwork, and all of those boxes I'm not giving her. We are not touching those. That's a day 2 project, because if you know anything about the Marie Kondo method, paper is the hardest thing to part with. So you'll see us tackle that day 2, and I'll show you kind of the plan once we get there. Okay, and like I said, there are those boxes. I'll actually change camera angles here in a bit, and you'll be able to see the outside of the garage and how much we really are starting to pull out of this garage. And this is one of my first times setting up a camera and cleaning, so all of that gets better as we go. I'm going to learn to move the camera a bit more frequently and pause and show you in detail what I'm working through. But this part of the process we're watching right now, I really love. I love every part of the process, if I'm honest, but this kind of in the thick of it where we're really, you know, we've got multiple projects going on at once because there's just no really other way to do it when you're dealing with this much stuff. To get through it efficiently, we have to pick and go through one box at a time while also making little piles or stations. So you can see in the shot, we've got our linens piled up. We've got our kitchenware in its own box. And then I'm just still discovering a lot of what's in all of these boxes. And my curiosity always takes over in this process where, you know, sometimes I just start opening boxes because I'm looking at other people's junk, and that is just the best. It's why we love yard sales. It's why I love going into people's homes. I think their stuff tells a story. And while I am encouraging them always to get rid of it when they're ready, I also love to look at it. And I'm also just the muscle, as you can see, hauling some of the heavier stuff full of dishes and appliances. So again, helping out the neighbor. I'm glad I was there because I can't imagine my neighbor trying to lift some of these boxes off the shelves by herself. And then once I get access to these shelves, as you'll slowly start to see me do, the next step for my mind is to start going into organization mode long term and ask myself, where are we going to put the organized clear bins, the ones that are full and ready to be stored? My neighbor told me she has no place in her house for these. She doesn't want them in a basement or an attic. Everything needs to be stored in the garage. You're going to see me sweep a lot throughout this video and all my projects. I like to pause, I like to sweep up, and I can already see the comments of why are you sweeping when you have so much to do. I like a clean space. I like to get rid of dirt and debris as I come across it and get it out. And I'm putting a lot of stuff on the ground, and it's what I do, okay? Everything stays neat and tidy. It's what I like. Next, what I'm showing you here, this is the end of our day. Again, I was here for about 4 hours this first day, and we got to a nice stopping point where it was time to break down all the boxes and start to pile those up. I started to put them in her recycling bin and then realized there's just no room. So we put them next to the recycling bin, which is great because you end up seeing the pile later on. Now, everything you see in the front of the garage, that purple tote that has things piled on it, the silver bag that you see laid next to it, that is all like outdoor camping equipment, balls, outdoor games, tennis rackets, water guns, things for kids. All of that is going to her oldest daughter who has some kind of connection to like a summer camp or rental house or something like that. So that stays around, but know that that has a plan to be gone. And I did speak with her again. Does your daughter know you have this? Does she actually want this stuff? Because we end up getting such a big pile that I wondered what kind of car her daughter drives, because all of this will not fit in one car load by the time we're done with it. But I'm really proud that we pulled all of that out, and I do plan to check in with my neighbor to see if that has gone to a good home or not. And here we are for day 2. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but day 2 is going to look a little bit different for my neighbor. You can probably see here, I set her up a card table in the back corner, and I'm giving her some clear bins, and all she's doing for a majority of today is sorting through paper. We start with some of her own bills and just paperwork, office paperwork that is her own, because I think that's going to be the easiest thing for her to sort and toss, make a shred pile or recycle, etc. I also, though, give her documents from her parents' house that can be, I don't know what was in there, medical bills, that can be journals, that could be just documents relating to their home and banking, so that she needs to go through and get rid of or file. And then the last thing that I'll ask her to go through are the more sentimental paper items. Some of that is photos, and some of that is her children's artwork throughout the years. Now, she did the work years ago to sort through some of that already. So you'll see at the end, I mentioned this wasn't a full transformation. I'm not going to get this entire garage floor clean, though I think we do a pretty nice job at the end. Some of these cardboard boxes are already full of her children's artwork, and they're sorted by their name and grades. We don't even get to those. There's only so much we can do in a day, and because I'm offering these cleanings for free, time is limited, and so I really wanted to focus instead on bigger changes, and those things were already sorted. So, okay, here's where I start to learn I need to change my camera angle more to make this a more entertaining video for you. So what I'm doing is I'm finally getting to that back corner. I mentioned earlier this was a goal of mine for her and her husband to be able to use their garage for more practical purposes. So right now I'm going through and I'm sorting all of the yard equipment I'm finding. They had a lot of hoses and sprinklers and things like that. There I am sweeping again. And I'm sorting things like with like things. You'll hear me say that a lot. Like things with like things. And I'm just trying to get to some cabinets and shelves that are back in this corner that I can't even get to right now. You can see the door won't even fully open. But there I am. I finally get to these cabinets. I open them up. I didn't know what was inside. And I find a lot of pesticides, a lot of lawn care, and a lot of automotive chemicals. So I start to sort those into these cabinets and put like items with like items. And then I start, as I'm pulling other things out, think about how I can best utilize these shelves, which you'll see in just a minute. I will cut to. They've got these shelves here. So I wipe them down, I get them nice and clean. And this is the part of the process that's a little bit trial and error, where I start to think, well, maybe I'll put some garden tools on these shelves, which I think is what I'm looking at there. And on the top shelf, I'll put electrical tools like saws or things you can plug in, right? Weed whackers, things like that. So I put those on the shelf, and then I uncover another box of something else, and I rearrange and rearrange and rearrange. And so I probably rearrange these shelves, you'll see, like 2 or 3 times. And then my neighbor looks up from all her paperwork and mentions that She has all of this patio furniture, these cushions that they don't like to leave out in the rain. They need to be stored somewhere. And I realized, well, these shelves are kind of perfect for those cushions. So all of this work and doing this over and over again, you'll start to realize I'm just trying to figure out the puzzle. And for me, I like to leave a lasting impression for my neighbors. I'm not just trying to clean up the house, like a weekly cleaning. I'm trying to make a difference by creating systems that work for them. So for me, being able to figure out that these cushions, this is where they can be stored permanently, that's a nice change. And I can get to the door now. Look, it fully opens. No longer a fire hazard. It's so great. You can see their backyard. That's really great. And when my neighbor saw this, we were ecstatic that this stayed free and clear. So now they have a nice pathway to come and go from the garage long after this cleaning is done. And boy, those cushions fit like a glove. I was so happy about that. I asked her if she used these lawn chairs a lot, and she said absolutely not. So I threw them up on top. Now here's where we start to run into some roadblocks with my neighbor. This is, I start to uncover things from her childhood bedroom, which, think for a moment, if your childhood bedroom is still intact at your parents' house, no matter what age you are, or think at the moment where you had to go and get rid of your stuff, that is definitely a difficult thing to go through for a lot of people. There's so much sentimental stuff tied to your childhood bedroom. I'm not a psychologist. I am in no way a hoarder expert, and I don't try to be. So when people tell me they're not ready to part with things, I give them a loving response, which is, great. If you're not ready, I hope you'll get ready at some point. But for now, what should we do about it? And for us, we took some of her more valuable childhood toys, which, again, I have to apologize. I realize this is something that would have been really cool to hold up to the camera and show you, because these are really cool vintage nostalgia light brights and Monopoly boards and dolls and just toys that you can't really find anywhere anymore. And I think beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Whether they are worth keeping or not is a different story, but they are still cool that they exist. And a lot of them still in their original boxes here. So for future videos, if you subscribe, I will be sure to be mindful of that and actually hold things up to the camera for you, the viewer, to, comment away, whether it's junk or worth something. But the reason I say we hit a snag is because this takes up a lot of time, and I really was hoping we would get rid of some stuff out of these boxes, but it really turned out that we needed to keep pretty much everything. And that's not ideal because we just don't have the space for it in this garage. And a lot of these items, they can go. When my neighbor's ready, they will go. So I pause on the games because I unearth 2 more boxes of photo frames with photos in them. And so I start to go through these photo frames and I start to talk with my neighbor about whether we need to be keeping all of these, or do we take the photos out and get rid of the frames. And with the time we knew we had left in the day, at this point I had probably been there maybe a little over an hour, hour and a half. We have about 2.5 hours left. What we realize is this is homework for her. So we're going to take all these photo frames out of the cardboard, put them into bins, and she will then take out these photos from the photo frames and get rid of the photo frames. But we're not going to do that work today. That will be homework. And I trust my neighbor that she's going to do this because she actually proved between day number 1 and day number 2, she had done a couple items reaching out to her daughters about some things so that we had decisions on whether we were keeping or tossing. But this just eats up a lot of the time. Even though I'm speeding up this footage, you can see I'm just bent over these bins for quite a while, just sorting and pulling out photo frames and nostalgic pieces. Okay, back over to my favorite area, my shelves, as my neighbor keeps chugging along at her paperwork in the back corner. Um, I uncover this beautiful wooden chest that they've held on to, but that was just full of childhood ball pit balls. So that goes out to the freebie table for sure. And then we've got this chest, which we can fill with something a little bit more of value that is worth putting in this chest, which was a sentimental piece in and of itself. So we keep that and we do put that back on the shelf. Okay, as I mentioned, we're putting as many clear bins on these shelves as possible now that we've cleared a path and can get to them easily. So what we prioritized on these shelves first were dishes. There were some holiday dishes, some serving dishes that would only come out during the holidays for larger meals. And then there were some dishes that she thinks her daughter is going to take. So all of these went up on the shelf for now in these clear bins. That way, again, they can see them and know right where they are when the holidays come around. But I'm still just trying to work down this large pile of boxes here, and I just keep uncovering more and more paper. And I did notice that my neighbor was starting to get a little bit overwhelmed. She powered through. She never stopped, to be honest. But it's a lot to go through and look at and, make decisions. I can't imagine all the memories that were coming up as she's doing that. So I'm almost sometimes hiding boxes of papers from her until she's ready for her next box. But that would result in her thinking she was done and then me saying, oh, here's one more for you. Now, if all the cardboard boxes on the floor weren't enough, now that we've cleared this path of these shelves, I recognize there are all these cardboard boxes up on these shelves that we really should also take the time to look through and sort. But what I quickly realized with this is that they are filled with more of my neighbor's childhood room items. So stuffed animals, things from prom, a lot of little knickknacks. So we take the time to put these in a plastic bin. My goal there is so she can see them and eventually want to part ways with them because she's tired of looking at them. But for now, we're going to take them out of the cardboard and make sure they're in good enough condition to keep and sort. I do uncover a few boxes in this process that were very water damaged and moldy, and there were a few of the boxes where I just had to break it to my neighbor that unfortunately they were not salvageable and or they were not worth keeping. One of them was just a box of books, like picture books and books you would buy, at a bookstore, not photo albums. And those were just things we unfortunately had to just completely toss. And that is the risk of storing a lot of cardboard boxes outside in a garage. They can get damaged. And then the sun is starting to set again and our time is almost up. This is the second and last day that I was working on this project. I had to go to another neighbor's house the next time, so we are just assessing how far we got and what still needs to be done as homework once I leave. You can see we were able to dwindle down the large pile of boxes that we started with into a much more manageable pile. Those are, again, those art photo albums and art from her children that she would just have to go through at her own time and decide what she wanted to keep or get rid of. And then again, we have the donation of the sporting equipment up front and then her daughter's bins on the side. But otherwise, I'm very proud of the work that we did. We sorted through so many of those boxes that are piled up in the garbage can. There's easily 24 of those. So that's what was taken out or sorted. Put those items on a shelf while maintaining a clear path in front of the shelf to get things off of it when they're needed. We restored function to that back corner of the garage, got that door fully opened, just created a couple systems within the space that can be easily maintained. And while we didn't get to do a full transformation this time, my neighbor was extremely grateful for this volunteer service and sent me a few messages afterwards just how lasting the effect was for her, which made me feel really good. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing. I post videos in all kinds of different spaces of my neighbors' homes, their kitchens, their bedrooms, their living rooms, their garages, and I'll be posting those on a weekly basis. So follow along and support the efforts, and I will see you next time, Clean Freaks.